like weird thing that they know people would buy. It's like Owen Benjamin, had it all for him, and then he just hung himself with a red ribbon on a big coat hanger. Everyone would be like, he was murdered. You just killed a good man. We hate you even more now, and now we believe in God even more. It's called martyrdom. It's why when people think that you're always at risk for just being loving and trying.
The results of the European election are still coming in. We have a pretty good idea of where things stand now. There's some big victories. There's also some big disappointments. As far as the big victories, there's probably no country that did better than Italy. Italy was just an absolute runaway success for the right. Hungary was also a big success. Poland, the National Rally Party in France, the Brexit Party in the United Kingdom. All things considered, Austria was basically a big success. Czech Republic did very well. And Flanders, which is not a country but a region, was a huge runaway success. The countries that were most disappointing were probably the Netherlands and Denmark. Also, Spain was pretty disappointing, and to a lesser extent, I could say Finland and Estonia. Now, the biggest takeaway, first of all, is that in most of the countries, voter turnout is very low for EU elections. I think what we saw is the parties on the left that are the most pro-EU were the most likely to outperform the polls, such as Germany's Green Party. And a lot of these Green parties are extremely pro-EU, and they have the backing of very powerful, very wealthy nonprofits, media, and so on and so on. And they were much better at getting their people to the polls in low voter turnout areas. Okay, the first two things I need to bring up are about Greece and Britain. The Prime Minister of Greece has called for an early snap election based on the outcome of the EU election in Greece. Now, his party is called the Coalition of the Radical Left. They control almost half of the Greek parliament, but they got less than a quarter of the vote today. New Democracy came in first place with about a third of the vote. They are a very weak center-right party. The craziest thing about the Greek results, 21% of the Greeks voted for a huge number of teeny tiny parties that barely got anything each. There was two nationalist parties that got over 4% each. Golden Dawn, which is going to get 2 seats, and a new party called Greek Solutions, which is going to get 1 seat. Now, with the United Kingdom, the Brexit Party is probably going to get 29 seats. The bad thing is Tommy Robinson lost. And I really thought that he would win. He didn't just lose, he lost bad. For whatever reason, the British people completely rejected the idea of voting for independent candidates. Tommy Robinson was probably one of the best performing independent candidates, if not the best performing. But he still only got about 2.5% of the vote in his constituency. Okay, now for some good news. In Italy, the right just completely steamrolled everything. Matteo Salvini's League Party took close to 34% of the vote. They're going to get 38% of Italy's seats, 28 seats. The Brothers of Italy are taking another 5 seats. Berlusconi's party is going to get 7 seats. That's 55% of the seats going to the Italian center-right coalition. Five-Star Movement, which is like a big tent, anti-establishment populist party, is taking 14 of the seats. The Social Democrats are only getting 26% of the seats. It was a huge victory for the right. In Hungary, another big victory for the right. The Fidesz party is taking 13 of Hungary's 21 seats. In Poland, the Law and Order party got something like 44%. They're going to have 22 seats in the European Parliament. Confederation, which is a cartel of hardline nationalist parties, they got about 6.5%. They're going to get 3 seats. Now, his 15 got below the minimum threshold of 5%. They got 4 point something. The BBC and the UK Guardian are claiming that they're going to get 2 seats. I'm very certain that this is wrong. These major British media outlets don't know what they're talking about. I believe his 15 actually won't get a seat. Now, Austria was realistically a victory because, as if you watched my previous videos, the Austrian Freedom Party was supposedly crushed by a alleged scandal. Right now, they're at over 17%. They're going to get probably 3 seats. They probably just barely missed getting a 4th seat. Now, there's a brand new YouTube video by Martin Sellner and Martin Lichmus in Austria. I actually met Martin Lichmus a couple of years ago. It's kind of a long video, about 35 minutes. But if you want a really detailed account about what's going on with the Austrian Freedom Party, I recommend that you watch their video. The results in the Czech Republic are good. There was a small party that pledged to join Matteo Salvini's coalition, but it was very iffy if they would get a seat. They ended up getting 2 seats, and then another party that's part of the ECR doubled their seats from 2 to 4. Now the results in Slovakia are kind of weird. There's this party called Kodleba that the government was trying to ban. The prosecutor general spent 2 years trying to have them banned. The High Court finally ruled, I think April 29th, that they could not be banned, and then they exploded in the polls immediately after that. Basically, they were being accused of romanticizing the Axis government of Slovakia during World War II, and the prosecutor general's office claimed that they had totalitarian ambitions or something. At any rate, they got 12% and won 2 of Slovakia's seats. Now, I have mixed feelings about this. I don't know very much about the party. Those 2 seats came at the expense of 2 other parties I was rooting for. One is We Are Family, which had pledged to join Matteo Salvini's group. The other one is the Slovak National Party. Now, another Slovak party that's part of the ECR won seats. So here's what we're looking at as far as the EU groups that are to the right of the European People's Party, the EPP. The EPP is basically the big establishment center-right movement. So we've got the European Alliance of People and Nations, which is replacing the former Europe of Nations and Freedom. And we got Italy with 28 seats, the French National Rally with 22 seats. So they're going to be 2 of the biggest parties in the entire EU Parliament. Then the Alternative for Deutschland from Germany, 11 seats. They didn't do quite as well as I think they should have. You got the Austrian Freedom Party with 3 seats. You got 3 seats from Flemish Interest, which I was worried that they wouldn't even get 1 seat a while ago. That was a runaway success. You got this new Czech party with 2 seats. You got the True Finns, or as they now like to be called in English, the Finns Party, with 2 seats. You got the Danish People's Party with 1 seat. The Estonian Conservative People's Party with 1 seat. And then you got the ECR, the European Conservative and Reformists. Poland, the Polish Law and Justice Party, 22 seats. Also, they will be one of the biggest parties in the parliament. Then you got the Brothers of Italy with 5 seats. You've got Forum for Democracy, that's Trémouet's party, getting 3 seats. And then you had Christian Union and the Calvinist Party ran as a cartel and got 2 seats. You got Czech Party with 4 seats. You got New Flemish Alliance with 3, Swedish Democrats with 3. Then you got parties from Latvia, Slovakia, Lithuania, Croatia. So down here at the bottom, we got some extra stuff. We got the Vox Party from Spain. They actually underperformed compared to the polls. The goal was to get over 10%. They only got, I think, 6.5. They're getting 5 seats. They could go with either one of these 2 alliances. You get Fidesz from Hungary with 13 seats. Now, they have temporarily suspended themselves from the EPP, and it's out in the open whether they're going to remain in the EPP or if they're going to join one of these 2 groups. Then you got one more seat for Yavin, which there's a whole long backstory that I don't want to get into right now. But Yavin applied to join the EPP recently and they rejected them. It's speculated that they're going to try to join the ECR now. You got 3 seats for Confederation for Poland. I think they're likely to join Salvini's alliance. 2 seats for Golden Dawn, 1 seat for Greek Solutions from Greece. Then you got the 2 Kotleba seats from Slovakia. Now, in 2014, Golden Dawn got 3 seats, and basically all the other nationalist parties considered them to be too toxic to be associated with. And we could actually see the same thing with Golden Dawn again, and with the 2 seats for Kotleba. Now, the EFF, Europeans for Freedom and Direct Democracy, was the Italian 5-star movement, UKIP, and a bunch of splinter groups and random stuff. Now, I didn't add any of the British parties to this list, so I don't have the Brexit Party here, which was the Italian 5-star movement's main ally before. But most of the parties that 5-star movement claimed were going to join the EFDD to keep it going, most of them didn't want to see. Most of them were teeny tiny parties and really had any chance. Only the Croatian Human Shield won the seat. Even if the Brexit Party was their ally, they're nowhere close to meeting the minimum requirements of what we're doing. So it's unclear if the Italian 5-star movement will join some group. They actually tried to join the ALDE and was rejected. Now, a lot of media calls 5-star movement far right, which they are not. It's basically anti-establishment populism, and they might just end up floating around by themselves. Human Shield maybe will join the ECR, I don't know. Now, there are a few other wild cards. There's a few other parties in the EPP that could also leave along with Fidesz. Most of them would probably join the ECR. Okay, I'm going to have more to say about these election results in the coming week, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching this video. Click the like button, post a comment, tell me what you think, and please consider making a donation, as YouTube has mass demonetized all my videos. And please support my sponsor, Patriotic Flags, the online flag store, patriotic-flags.com, and click the subscribe button. New video every few days.
Situation here in France is very much a strong one for Marine Le Pen's Rassemblement National, with 23% of the vote. That is slightly down, actually, on the 2014 result for her, so she can perhaps be disappointed. Also, given the fact that the La République En Marche, Emmanuel Macron, is just 1 point behind. So the governing party here in France coming second in the vote, but you could have expected it to look even worse, given, of course, the Gilets jaunes protests and so on over the past 6 months or so. Big surprise here in France has been the massive growth of the Ecologie there, the Green Party there with 30%, almost doubling their score in 2014. They've basically Conservative Party and the Socialist Party are both seeing their scores very much collapse over the past in these elections. And it has to be said that that green wave that we can see there in France is one of, in fact, the situation here in France is very, very interesting when it's extrapolated to the rest of the continent. What we're seeing is the populists that are very similar to Marine Le Pen's Rassemblement National doing extremely well in certain parts of the continent. And the other big story of the night is, of course, the green wave, which is here in France and is being repeated in other places such as Germany.
Well, tell us about Germany then, because Angela Merkel's CDU-CSU coalition has managed to hold on to first place, but things moving around quite a lot.
Yeah, they've held on to first place, but they've seen their score decline by 7%. That's so the CDU of Angela Merkel down to 28%. It seems like a poor 29% there. It seems like a poor result given the situation of 5 years ago, but they are still the first and biggest party in Germany, so there is a degree of satisfaction there. The big story there, of course, is once again the increase in the share of the vote for the Green Party, 11 points higher than it was 5 years ago, on 21 there. And the other big story is the dramatic fall of the Social Democrats in Germany, who've seen their vote share decline by 12 percentage points. So that situation is very much being repeated here in France and in Germany and across the big European countries.
Well, let's move on to another huge European country with a large proportion of seats in the European Parliament, Italy. There we've got some early results as well.
We're getting really the exit polls as well is giving us a better picture of the situation there. And the situation there is perhaps as was to be expected, that is, that the Lega of Matteo Salvini has done very well, around about 30% of the vote. That is considerably ahead of the Democratic Party and its coalition partner, the Five Star Movement. The really interesting thing there is to see to what extent Matteo Salvini has done well. He was expecting around about 30%. He's on target for that, but he's not going any further, and that does demonstrate too that perhaps there is a ceiling that puts a brake on the extent of to what extent the populists in Europe can convert their popularity into seats in the European Parliament. The other story there is to what extent the Five Star Movement has really failed to capitalise on the fact that it's been in government for over a year now, and it's still only at 30%. It would seem behind the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party, which was full of doldrums a year ago, to a certain extent recovering there into the low 20s.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are starting to get some results in from a bit of the black sheep of this election, it has to be said, the late entrant, the UK, that didn't even know it was going to be taking part until just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the situation in the United Kingdom is very much along the lines of what we were expecting from the opinion polls in the run-up to the vote itself. The Brexit Party dominating massively. We're seeing scores in some areas, not in the regions, but in some areas over 50% in favour of the Brexit Party. That is likely to translate across the country into extremely big wins. We're seeing the Conservative Party falling to an all-time low of 10% in these elections. It would seem, according to some early polls, and that's the party of government, of course. The Conservative Party falling to 10%. But we're seeing in the northeast of the country Labour heartland. Labour is shedding votes too in favour of the Brexit Party. The northeast seeing two of its MEPs being the Brexit Party, one from Labour. That's a reverse from the situation of 2014. The east of the country, Brexit again, the Brexit Party again consolidating its victories there. 3 MEPs from the east of the country, 2 for the Lib Dems, 1 for the Greens and 1 for the Conservative Party. What's interesting there is that the Brexit Party is consolidating its popularity, but it's the anti-Brexit parties in the east of the country that are also scoring a total of 3 MEPs there. So there is a degree of, if you will, a fight back from the anti-Brexit movements, and questions are likely to have to be asked about why those anti-Brexit supporters couldn't unify if they're going to have the same voter share as the Brexit Party.
So plenty to discuss in terms of the UK, very much coloured by the Brexit debate, as we know. Just before we let you go and keep up with your results update, Luke, you've got news for us from Greece. Not very rosy news for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, Alexis Tsipras calling snapped elections this after his Syriza party fell to second place in the European elections, shedding quite a few MEPs in favour of the New Democracy party, which is.
Thanks so much, Elena, with that. This election was a climate protection election. This election was an election for democracy. For human rights, for a cosmopolitan Europe. That's why the votes which are making us happy are not just green votes. They are votes for climate protection. They are votes for democracy. They are votes against far-right populism. They are votes for human rights in all of Europe, dear friends. Our celebrations there with the Greens. We have our chief political correspondent, Melinda Crane, with us in our studio. Melinda, if we took a headline away from this vote, it would be, the Green wave, 20.6% according to the results we have so far, the second biggest party. And there's another figure I want to look at with you that I think we can bring in here as well that is pretty indicative of how well the Greens have been doing. They take a look here, if we have this at the youth vote. So the people here voting in Germany under the age of 30, they show that 35% of all German voters under 24, have voted Green. And as you can see, the older the voters get, the less likely they are to vote for the Greens. So, Melinda, these are pretty astonishing figures, and also the success in general. What do you make of this?
Fascinating. Well, climate is the generational issue, isn't it? And we've seen that very clearly demonstrated for the last few months as all over Europe, thousands of young people took to the streets every Friday.
No wonder they're indoctrinated with the crap, aren't they?
And politicians in general weren't doing enough about climate change. But a lot of people were concerned in the run-up to this election that nonetheless, those young people who go to the streets wouldn't go to the ballot box because, in fact, youth turnout is often very, very low, particularly in EU elections. That does not appear to be the case this time around. We still don't, I think, have exact figures on youth turnout, but turnout in general has been high, and clearly turnout, particularly for parties like the Greens, very high indeed. A couple of messages go out from this result that we see here in Germany for the Greens. First of all, message to national politicians. We expect more. The fact is, the coalition's policy on climate and on environment has been quite muddled. If we think of the diesel scandal involving Germany's automakers, if we think of all the debate about bans on diesel emissions in cities, but especially if we look at the really painful discussion around phasing out burning brown coal. So all of that a message to national politicians. Also, clearly voters ascribing competence to the EU and EU level on environment. We've seen that in a lot of surveys. We see it in this election result. That's good news for Europe moving ahead on ambitious climate policy. So one last thing. Green parties are winning in several other European countries as well, are doing quite well. Austria, Ireland, France. That means we are going to see a bigger block of seats in the next EU Parliament for the Greens. That gives them more bargaining power. With those big parties shrinking, they will be required to do more deals with parties like the Greens in future. And again, that can put some dynamism in EU climate policy.
Really interesting takeaways there, and really showing the shifting political landscape, as you said, Melinda. If it's a message to the traditional parties, we also have to say it's a message to Chancellor Angela Merkel's Conservatives. They got around 8 points less than they had got the last time, a little bit less than they had hoped for. The CDU's party head, Annika Kallenbauer, was speaking a little bit earlier. Let's listen to what she had to say about their results. This election result is not the result we, as a party of the people, expect of ourselves. We will meet next weekend and analyse the results, but now, tonight, we can clearly say that there are several reasons that led to these results. For one, yes, certainly we have not been dynamic enough in government, and we have failed to give convincing answers that voters across Germany rightly expected of us. All right, Melinda, we heard her say there essentially, we got the message. We haven't performed well enough. We haven't delivered. But is this really a continuation of this trend that we've seen in German politics, also across Europe, the splintering of the middle, the political middle?
Absolutely. Just one fact. Since 1949, the first two places in every election on national level were reserved for the Christian Democrats with their Bavarian sister party and for the Social Democrats. This is historic. We are seeing the Greens in second place. I cannot underline enough what kind of a massive tectonic shift that represents. Secondly, here for Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, she is not only the head of the Christian Democratic Party, she's the designated successor, or, the thought is that she would be the next chancellor. But this historic record low for the CDU has happened in the first election that she essentially has supervised as party leader, meaning this is also quite problematic for her. We are absolutely seeing a drift away from these big tent parties. There are a lot of reasons for that, some of them structural, some of them long-term, some of them trans-European, too complex perhaps to go into here. But this is a very decided trend with big disadvantages for these two parties that are currently governing Germany together.
Yeah, what does that mean then for the stability of this government? The Social Democrats, as you said, also performing, taking a big hit at the polls.
Indeed, they also have seen their lowest record low performance. Well, if you listen to what everybody's saying on the record from both parties, they're saying, oh, this is not going to affect the Grand Coalition. We must continue together. We must essentially renew our messages and take them to the people. But the fact is, this is a definite, a real blow for the Social Democrats. This historic party coming in third place with all kinds of questions within the party about whether they are able to really have any kind of political identity anymore in this Grand Coalition, where even when they put their own agendas, issues on the agenda, they don't seem to get credit from the voters. There's been a lot of behind the scenes rumors about whether there might be a leadership putsch after the EU election. We've heard young members of the party saying we don't want to continue in this coalition that is so problematic for us. Now, whether we'll see a fragmentation soon is very, very unclear at the moment, but expect a lot of discussion and turbulence in coming weeks.
All right, we'll be talking more about this through the course of the evening. Our chief political correspondent, Melinda Crane. Thank you, Melinda. All right, let's go back to Brussels now, where Max Hoffman is standing by for us. Hi, Max. So we've been just talking with Melinda about some of the bigger trends we're seeing here. Some of the numbers are becoming a bit clearer here. What is your take on this there in Brussels? Is it safe to say that we're also seeing this continuation of the splintering of the middle and the rise of other parties like the Greens, for example? What do we take away from this?
What we have is a fragmentation. It was a no-brainer in the past, also in Germany, but now also on the European level, that if you had the two biggest parties, the Social Democrats and the Conservatives, in this case the European People's Parties, that you would have a majority. That is no longer the case, meaning it'll take 3 to 4 different factions in the European Parliament to have a majority, and that will change the way policy will be made. That will change the emphasis, what they are talking about, which kind of policy is important. We talked to a lot of people tonight here, and it seems that fighting climate change will be on the front burner now, something that was on the back burner in the past because you have the Greens in the picture. You can really talk about a green wave throughout Europe now, because not only in Germany, the Greens have had good results, but also in France with about 13%. That's pretty new, no one's seen before. So this will make things more complicated, but for now it seems like those parties, the Greens, the Liberals, the Conservatives, and also the Social Democrats will be able to keep the right-wing populists out of the picture. But, think about this. It is likely that at least either the league from Matteo Salvini in Italy, so right-wing populist party, or the Brexit party from the UK will provide the biggest national group in the European Parliament. So even if the other parties are able to deal with this now through coalitions, if this trend continues, then at some point it will reach breaking point, and it will no longer be able to exclude the right-wing populists from the decision-making in the European Parliament.
All right, a fragmenting landscape there in Brussels. That picture, as we said, slowly becoming clearer as the night progresses. Max Hoffman for us. We'll talk to you a little bit later, Max. Thank you. It is one of the biggest democratic exercises in the world. More than 350 million people across 28 European countries are eligible to vote and to choose their next representatives that will sit here in the European Parliament. But with 28 countries voting on different days, each with its own electoral laws and procedures, it's bound to get complicated. The first European parliamentary elections took place back in 1979, when only 9 countries were members of what was then called the European Economic Community. Since then, that community has expanded into what's now known as the European Union, and voters head to the polls every 5 years to elect the 751 members of the European Parliament, or MEPs. The number of MEPs assigned to each country varies and corresponds to the country's population. For example, the EU's most populous country, Germany, elects 96 lawmakers, while Luxembourg only gets 6 seats. In some countries like Italy, MEPs represent a specific region. In others, like France, they represent the entire country. So now let's get into how all of these MEPs are actually elected. Voting is open to all EU citizens, and in Belgium, Bulgaria, Cyprus, Greece, and Luxembourg, it's actually compulsory. This time around, the elections are spread over 4 voting days between May 23rd and 26th. Here in Belgium, citizens cast their vote on Sunday, whereas the British and the Dutch have their say on the previous Thursday. The results, however, are kept secret until every country has voted. Next, let's talk about the method, or should I say methods, that the EU uses to elect its representatives. Stay with me. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. Depending on where a voter is based, they could be using one of 3 systems: the closed list, open list, or single transferable vote system. What they all have in common is that they aim to achieve proportional representation. That means the number of votes a party gets will directly correspond to the number of seats they receive in the European Parliament. In the closed list system, citizens vote for parties. Those parties have already selected a fixed list of candidates. So if a party gets 20% of votes in a country allocated 10 MEPs, the 2 top people on the party's list will become members of the European Parliament. In the open list system, Europeans vote for a party, but can also indicate their favorite candidate. This means voters can actually change the order of the party's list, therefore influencing which of the party's candidates become MEPs. In the single transferable vote system, voters can choose as many candidates as they like and then number them by preference. These votes are counted in phases.